Now we're going into part 3 of chapter 12, section 2, where if we know the answers, in a sense, that y equals this and y equals that, that is the known roots, can we find the quadratic equation that it came from? So I could write it out, but let's follow the book a little bit too. So we know this is 1, and there's the other. Now, where did this come from? Well, it was probably factored somehow. So if we take the 3, transpose it over to a negative 3, and the 2i, transpose it over to this, we get this factor equal to 0, and this factor equal to 0. We're now going to show it in its factored form before we equated it to 0. And now, what do you notice here? Well, you have a y minus 3 and a y minus 3. Now, we could set that up like so. And then what does this become? And let me show you what they're doing here too. I can put my 2 cents in there as well. So this would be in a sense like an A, and this is like an A. So you have basically A minus 2i and A plus 2i. So these are the conjugates that we've set them up as. Now when we multiply conjugates, this just becomes a squared, and this becomes a negative for I squared. But this is actually going to be, well, let's look at what the book is showing us here. There's your square, and there's your square. So this is like the difference of perfect squares here. And again, pause as often as you need, because now we're going to write this out. And we had some like this way back, and it looked like this. So it'll be y minus 3 plus 2i Well, we're looking for the equation here anyway, so let's do the equation here. We're not trying to factor it. I got carried away there. All right, so we're going to square this then. This is going to be y squared minus, we're going to multiply these two together, and this gives us 6y plus 9 minus 4i squared equals 0. So that would have been our original equation. And we are forgetting one thing here. That, let me go back a little bit. So taking a step back here, again, something we haven't told you yet, and that is I squared as an imaginary number equals -1. And in mathematics, we never leave an I square in an equation. So this is a -1. So -1 times -4 makes this a +4, as we now get rid of our I squared there. That's what they want us to do. So it becomes y squared minus 6y plus 13 equals 0. Okay. Again, I'm not sure how much of complex numbers we're going to get into, but this isn't too much to remember. I squared, and just to review, the square root of -1 is I. So I squared is -1. All right. And never leave an I squared in an equation. All right, let's go on and see what they show us then. There we go. Okay. Now, in looking at example B, pause, copy this down. We're going to pretty much repeat what we've just done. So there's x equals this, x equals that. We're going to transpose the 5 and the negative square root of 2 over. So we get this. Now notice this is a x minus 5 that we'll put in parentheses. So we're getting the difference of perfect squares here. So we square this, get that, and then we're squaring the square root of 2, which gives us the square root of 4, which is 2, a -2. So once we expand this, x square it gives us x squared. Multiply these two together. That's a -5x, double it, -10x. And then we have our 5 that we're going to square, gives us a 25. And this gives us a -2 that we're going to add to the 25 and get a 23. And there it is. So they could have given us maybe a few easier ones here than some of these challenging ones, but of course that's what they want to work with. So for letter C, they're doing it the same way. We're going to move everything over to one side, and we have our x minus 3 that we'll put like so. And now when we multiply this, let me just do that here because they don't show it that clearly here. We're going to square these, which is this squared here, and this will give us x squared minus 6x plus 9. And we're going to multiply a negative times a negative. And this is going to give us a negative I squared. And this is the square root of 25. This times this. I times I is I squared. All right, let's just erase a little bit here to save a little room. So the square root of 25 here, this is going to be a 5 here. And what did we say I squared was? Now remember, it's sort of a -5 I squared. We said I squared was a -1. So -1 times a -5, this is going to give you a +5 here. So this will be x squared minus 6x. 9 plus 5 is going to be 14 equals 0, and there is the equation. Very good. And there it is. Okay, again, this whole lesson in 3 parts ran 50 minutes, so we're not going to do this. And if you do, of course, there it is. Can pause it, and there are the answers. All right, in our next lesson, we're going on to the quadratic formula that's derived from the quadratic equation in standard form, where we solve it for x by completing the square. So I'm a little excited about that, and you'll have your work cut out for you. All right, let's wrap this up.